Okay, I think we can start. Yeah. I mean, after Batman and Robin, it's really a hard job for me. I don't know if I need to jump on the stage or doing something crazy, but I think that talking about artificial intelligence may be crazy enough also. And thanks for being here and for choosing this panel. And I mean, you all know that artificial intelligence is playing a pivotal role in our life. So what we are going to do today is using a tool that we have been elaborating since a couple of years inside the Consumer Empowerment Project. For those of you who are not familiar with this name, it's a project that we started together with Google in 2022, and it's a kind of multi-stakeholder platform for dialogue. One of the projects inside this initiative is the Consumer Digital Empowerment Index, which is a scientific tool to measure the level of empowerment of consumers through digital tools in 10 European countries. So what we're going to see in a moment is the results of the index for 2024. But this year, just because there is this huge attention related to artificial intelligence, we created a specific focus on artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence can empower consumers. So without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Marco Anelli, the head of statistical department of Euroconsumers, to present the outcomes of the Consumer Digital Empowerment Index for 2024. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marco. Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we have slides. Okay. So this is me. But for start, I would like also to thank Lucia Napoli, who is the researcher who transformed all the data that we collected in the survey into clear and actionable insights. So let's start from the Consumer Digital Empowerment Index. We know that digital services are more and more part of our life. 3 consumers out of 4 consider that in 10 years from now, our life will be mainly digital. And so we wanted to create a tool that allows to quantify and to draw insights on how digital services impact and empower consumers in our daily life, mainly focusing on the awareness of consumers and on the usage that they do, by also accessing basically how much they are empowered. Let's quickly see the methodology, because we wanted to have a solid approach for doing this. So we created the study in 2 phases. The first one was developing the index, and we did it by identifying which digital services are more important, more empowering consumers, through a Delphi procedure that I will speak you later what it means, involving some experts in the field. And then we went on the field, because of course experts can tell you what is the most important things, but it's consumers in the end that we want to listen to. And then we see through a representative sample of internet users what they think. So the Delphi procedure is a method, is a structured method for basically allowing a group of experts to arrive to a consensus on a research question. And the reason why we did it is that whenever creating an index, there is always a certain subjectivity in creating it, in choosing the indicators, in the importance, and so on. So we wanted to minimize this subjectivity in a way that it was most built by the experts themselves. So there were different iterations. First, we needed to identify which were the areas of consumptions which are more relevant to consumers. Then we needed to identify which services to include inside each of consumption area. And then through a 4th round, we were even defining which were the weight to be given to each digital service and to each consumption areas in order to build the final index. So we had a panel of 21 experts ranging in 9 different countries with different expertise, ranging from consumer protection to sustainability to digital expertise. And we did, as I told you, 5 rounds for developing the index and 1 more for evaluating the impact of services on sustainability. So the 10 consumption areas that were identified and included in the index are this one, and they range from government and public administration to product buying, home and domestic energy, and so on. So, and each area was assessed through the 4 digital services that empower consumers the most. So we have 10 consumption areas, 4 digital services, so in total 40 digital services that we analyzed. So, and the index scoring is based on a combination of usage and of awareness, and evaluation. So for people, for each of those 40 digital services, we ask whether people used it in the last of 2 years, and if yes, we ask for an evaluation. If not, we ask why they didn't do it. So if they did it, if they used it, then we ask for the usefulness, for how much easy it was to use it, and to what extent they prefer digital services to the corresponding offline version. If on the contrary they didn't use it but they knew it existed, it means that the service was probably not attractive to them. So we gave a low evaluation, the minimum evaluation for usefulness and preferences, and 0 to the usability criteria. On the other side, if they didn't even know that it was available, the services, then we consider that the service failed in empowering consumers, and we assigned a 0. By doing like this, we have different layers of scores. First of all, at the level of the digital service, then at the level of consumption area by using the weighted average of the scores of its digital service, and the overall index score that gives an overall evaluation about the country, considering the empowerment of consumers from digital services. So this is just to tell you that there is quite some math behind, don't worry, I will not go through it, that there is quite some math behind the calculation of the index, but okay. So after, as I was telling, after creating this index, then we went on field, and we did it in 2022 the first time, and we are repeating it every year on a representative sample of the internet users in 10 European countries. So let's have a look to the results. So first of all, digital services are widely used. So more than half of the respondents use at least 20 digital services of the 40 studies. So indeed, it's something real and already used a lot. And the large majority of them find it useful, easy to use, and prefer to the corresponding option. So let's see that the most useful, the one that are considered most useful is the bank accounts online and booking long distance trips online, while the most easy to use is the messaging tools, and the most preferred to the offline alternatives are peer-to-peer payments. So overall, the areas of consumption which are more empowering are the community and communication, the money in the investment, and the product buying. From the other side of the ranking, the ones that are less empowering are mobility and tourism, home and domestic energy, and education and training. And what is striking is that the last two, home and domestic energy and education and training, in the evaluation of the expert were considered as as the most important for consumer empowerment. So there is quite some work to do. So since we are doing the survey already on the 3rd year, we can already start to see what is the evolution. Of course, the results are quite stable, which is good. I mean, because of course, from one year to the other, you cannot find big differences. But you see that, for instance, for the health, well-being, and sport, there is quite a constant increase, even if small, and the same also for mobility and tourism. Just to give you an idea, the services, the specific services which got the highest increase in the index from last year to this one is getting medicine prescription online, which is something which is becoming and pushed by certain health system, and also using platform for booking rides. When we look to the reason why people do not use digital services, we find that the most important ones are the lack of awareness and the lack of trust. So for the lack of awareness, that happens, for instance, in some topics which are quite important nowadays, which is, for instance, having to do with the energy consumption and with the fact-checking of news. From the other side, the lack of trust in the provider mainly has to do, of course, I would rather say, with money, so open banking, managing bank accounts, and peer-to-peer payment, but also with social media. Then we also did a fifth Delphi round on the sustainability, let's say. In this case, we only asked it to the experts. The idea was to find a kind of, how to say, a short indicator, easy indicator for each of the services, whether it has a negative or a positive impact on sustainability. And we see that basically almost all of them, they were considered by the experts that were involved in the study as either positive or very positive or slightly positive, with some negative aspects related to the increase of possible challenges related to the increase of energy utilization, to the overconsumption, and to the big quantity that has to do with data transfer and storage. So let's now come on the focus of AI, which also will be the topic of this panel. So there we made a link with the indexes. So we try to see what is the perception of consumers towards the presence of artificial intelligence in the 10 consumption areas that we studied also in the index. And there we see that I would rather say, of course, information and media and shopping, they are on the top of this perception list, while home and domestic energy, again, and government and public administration, they rank low. Then about the usage of in generative AI tools. So large part of the sample is aware of Gen AI tools. Only 13% never heard about them, and 44% already use it at least once. Of course, some of them they only tried for a curiosity, but we see that okay, using from time to time is 21%. Using them frequently or even every day, so summing them up is 10%. When going to look who is more or less using it, of course, it's here we find a bit the digital divide. So males under 25, highly educated, they are the one who use it more. From the other side, elderly people not, but over 66, low educated, they use it less. And why they use it? So in the most important categories are creativity and content creation, and by that we don't always mean creating options of art, but even writing an email or making a presentation. Maybe I should have done it as well here. So then we have consultation and learning, so looking for information on the internet, also creating tools for learning things for the school. Then we have language and translation, 54%. Entertainment, coding means programming support, like for instance understanding coding or explaining or doing even programmation, health consultation, managing tasks, and other things. So the big part of it, once again, is creativity and content creation, consultation and learning, and languages and translation. Are people satisfied with the results that they get from generative AI? In general, I would say yes. So the ones that they say that the AI tools do not provide accurate results, they are 10%. Then there is 1/3 that more or less doesn't express themselves, and 60% to a different extent, of course. Only 14% completely agree with the sentence, but they are overall satisfied. So this means that they know that, of course, generative AI is not perfect, that you cannot trust it 100%, but overall they are satisfied. The main barriers to the utilization of using generative AI tools is, first of all, that they don't feel skilled in order to do that. And that is something important that we need to tackle. Then there are some people, 1/4 about, they are against technologies replacing humans, or they think even it is dangerous. Some people who don't trust the information that it is not provided, so they don't even touch it. Privacy reason is also a concern for 1/5 of the respondents. And okay, I don't find them useful, or I'm afraid that my question could be used for commercially profiling me. So this is a bit the tool. Again, on the skill gap, because indeed this is quite important. So 33% do not feel capable of using AI. And within those who feel capable, there are some differences. Again, depending on the age and on the gender. So the group which feel more skilled is the one of males under 24, for which the percentage of those who feel capable is 61%. The ones that are less, they are females over 66 and not professionally active, where only 12% of people feel skilled. So this is something that should be tackled as a point. Then we have another important point which should be tackled, which is the one of trust. So only 31% of respondents trust companies that use AI and that they do it in a fair and responsible manner. But also for public authorities, it's only 35% that trust to exert an effective control on the organization that use AI. So I would say that the two most important messages coming from the surveys are the level of trust and the low skill of the users. Then we asked also about what are the potential, or what people think about the potential impact on society. So we asked to answer whether they agree or not with the following statements. So AI will contribute to make the world more sustainable. 34% agree with it. AI will contribute to increase substantially human life expectancy by improving diagnostic tests or even treatments. That's 38%. From the other side, a big portion, more than half of them, think that AI will bring more unemployment than new jobs. And also 66%, this means 2 people out of 3, they are concerned about the possible impact of AI on manipulating the public opinion. Continuing on the concern side, 59% is concerned about risk for cybersecurity, 57% about privacy issue, and 25% about the fact that AI could generate unfair discrimination related to gender, related to race, related to political opinion, and so on and so forth. So this was it. I invite you to visit the website, which is online with the updated data. There you can find a lot of information also on the index. You can compare between consumption area, within services, between countries. So that's something really to interact and to play with. And that's it. So I leave you.
Thank you. Thanks, Marco. I think it's absolutely a massive work. And I would like to start from the data. And I'd like to involve Christina Stamp, Head of Unit Media Convergence and Social Media at European Commission, DG Connect, because I was impressed by one of the data, so the high perception that the consumer has on the presence of AI in information and media. And this is a highly debate around the role of artificial intelligence, both in terms of generating misinformation, disinformation, but also on the other side as a tool for combating the misinformation or the disinformation generated by AI. Looking back at the beginning of this century, when a lot of copyright issues raised, there was the sentence of the answer to the machine should be in the machine. So maybe we could ask to ourselves if the answer to the manipulated content generated AI should be in the AI itself. I'd like to hear from you on this topic and also commenting on the data if you saw something that is interesting.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks a lot for having me. These are indeed very inspiring figures. I think a lot can be drawn from it, and indeed the first figure that struck me is really this high perception of the presence of AI in information and media, and it is absolutely true. AI is changing massively the media landscape. Actually, it has become almost as easy to order a fully AI-generated news website than to order dinner with Uber Eats. You can, for around $100, basically, you can ask a web developer to develop a website for you that generates thousands of news articles a day according to some keywords that you want to select. And of course, this can be about information and disinformation. So this is really a big change. Also, when looking at elections, we have seen that this technology can be very much used. For example, in the form of deepfakes, we have seen it in the Moldovan elections, also manipulated sound recordings, like, for example, in Slovakia. And I think also today we are seeing that the landscape is very much changing. I mean, from the figures, it seems that consumers seem to be aware of that to some extent, because indeed around 22% sees generative AI tools as dangerous technology. And I mean, this is certainly there as a possibility how to use them. And also I saw the figure that 65% are concerned about the impact of AI in manipulating public opinion. So I think it is a good thing that people are aware. And I mean, this threat is there. And we can see it already used in some elections. In the European Parliamentary elections, we have not seen it so much. It was more old school, this information that has been used, but we cannot be fool ourselves that this will not be used. Let me then bring us maybe to how this could be used as a tool, or to the more bright side of the pictures, because, I mean, it is like with every tool. It can be used by malicious actors, but we can also be used for the good. Just a few examples for this. When it comes to those who are fighting disinformation, it can be very much used, for example, to debunk fake news, for example, to debunk videos that have been manipulated, pictures that have been manipulated. It can be also making fact-checking much more at scale, not needing to look at each and every video to detect the same content in all languages. So I think this is very much there. Let's also not forget about the capacity that this type of technology can give to researchers. For example, investigative journalism using data science. So I think all this is already there. And when it comes to consumers, indeed, it was also the skills gap that has brought my attention, that basically, indeed, only that 56% basically never heard of or have never used generative AI. So we can see it in this as a concern, but we can also see that there is room for improvement. So actually, if people start using it and discovering it, I think they will be also more able to use it well and to use it to their advantage. Because I think also the figure regarding trusting the accuracy of generative AI, 20% say they don't trust it. A high percentage says they trust it. And both are right, because sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right. It's just, I think, very important to approach it with caution, to be aware that this technology can provide good and wrong answers. And of course, representing the European Commission, I have also closer these that we have, in particular in view of that, put several instruments in place that can mitigate these risks, notably the Digital Services Act, the AI Act, election guidelines. So I think we have legal instruments at place to mitigate this risk, but of course the consumer awareness and I believe also the educational media literacy angle is very important, and I understand we will get to that in a moment.
No, thanks, Christina. And on this, I mean, the whole motto, don't trust, verify, I think it's something that is fully applicable also to generative AI. So not every outcome that comes from systems is something that you need to trust. It's always that you need to verify the information, to check other sources of information. And in this way, you can reach a better result. Another data that is interesting in the survey is about regulation. And maybe on this, I would like to involve Sain Yazici, also from the European Commission, Legal and Policy Officer, Consumer Law Enforcement and Redress, DG Justice. I must say that he was so kind to join very last minute because Egelin Brown was supposed to be here, but Egelin was appointed in the cabinet of Commissioner McGrath. So I congratulate with her in private. I do hear from the stage of the Euroconsumers Forum, and Sain was so kind to join very last minute. So thanks for that. And talking about regulation, the European Union adopted this year the AI Act. but we became familiar very recently with this tremendous study on the fitness check on digital fairness, so the assessment of how much the current regulation fits with AI and if there is any gap that we need to close in the regulation. So I would like to ask you, also having in mind this study, what are the main outcomes from the fitness checks regarding the impact of AI on consumers' rights?
Oh, thank you very much. Is it on?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
It works.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, sorry to disappoint those who were looking forward to see Egelin. She's indeed moved on to the cabinet. And as you know, she was indeed the mastermind behind the digital fitness check. So this was an evaluation that was launched back in 2022, where the Commission basically looked at 3 core directives of consumer law to evaluate whether those directives are still fit to ensure a high level of consumer protection in the digital age. And those 3 directives are, of course, the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, the Consumers' Rights Directive, and the Unfair Contract Terms Directive. Now, to make that evaluation, the Commission services basically use the same criteria as we use in the better regulation guidelines, which are, just to repeat, effectiveness, how effective is the act to achieve its goal, efficiency, cost-benefit, efficiency, relevance of the act to deal with current and emerging issues, coherence, both internal and external, within the EU and member states, and lastly, the added value of the legal act in terms of, do we need this act at EU level on top of what is already possible on national level? So those were the 5 criteria used for the check, and the results were indeed published on October 3rd. And I would say the general conclusion is that these 3 directives and the rules therein are still indeed effective and efficient to achieve the general goal of a high level of consumer protection within the European Union. However, the evaluation also found some specific, potentially harmful practices and trends that might not be entirely regulated or clearly regulated in the current directives. And specifically for AI, because AI was, of course, just one aspect of the many things evaluated. For AI, the general conclusion applies. So in general, the rules are, for the moment, effective and efficient, but there are specific potential practices and issues with AI for which we need to think further. And specifically for that, the evaluation report looked at AI chatbots, which is of course very popular now among consumers. And specifically for AI chatbots, the evaluation looked at 2 potential issues. First of all, one of the things that we see for AI chatbots is that their use by default by traders and as an exclusive means to contact the trader. So you can see this on quite some websites nowadays. If you want to contact the trader, you have to use these AI chatbots, and that's the only way you can contact, basically, have any kind of contact with the trader. And that was highlighted by the evaluation as something that can potentially impact the effectiveness of our existing rules. And there was a survey as part of this check, and there 44% of the consumers actually said that they found themselves recently in a situation where they wanted to have contact with the trader, but the only way to have contact was the AI chatbots. So that's one thing. And specifically there, in terms of regulation, we don't have a horizontal rule in consumer law saying that a consumer needs to have the right for a human interlocutor. We have specific rules For example, now in the digital marketing of financial services, there we have a specific provision where they say that consumers have the right to have a human interlocutor for financial services, and something similar exists in the Consumer Credit Directive. So that's one issue. A second issue that we also saw with AI chatbots is how do we apply the current rules when basically the trader is represented by the AI chatbot, or where the service provided by the trader is basically in that AI chatbot. And one example are search engines for product and service recommendations. You have them now online, they exist. You use the AI chatbot to ask, for example, what product or what service should I buy, what can you recommend? And the AI chatbot, of course, generates reply based on all the resources and data it can has access to. And there's a question of transparency regarding paid or paid promotions that you can find within the AI-generated content. So when the AI chatbot creates a reply saying, these are potentially, things that I can recommend which suit your needs, it is possible that in those replies you have paid content for which, third-party traders pay the service provider to be included in the reply. And there, of course, you have rules, existing rules for search engines, where we say that if you have paid content, paid search results, you have to be transparent about that. You have to indicate that, label that. But the situation is less clear when such promotional material just slips into the AI-generated content without there being a specific, line with the third party. So those are two aspects. Looking forward, as everyone might have seen, the mission letter of the Commissioner states that there will be a Digital Fairness Act prepared by him during this mandate, working on different aspects based on the results of this fitness check. We will have to see what kind of form and what the form of this Digital Fairness Act will be. The mission letter doesn't say that it has to be a specific legislation or a type of legislation. So we'll see with the consultations which start. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Christina wants to say one thing.
Indeed, just one very quick thing, because indeed the chatbots were mentioned, and I also mentioned the results. So just to give you one practical result of the legislative framework that is already there, that the Commission has sent requests for information during the European parliamentary elections, as indeed reports have pointed to wrong answers given to election-related queries through chatbots, which can be a very big concern, because this may have very much impact the electors' behaviors. And based on that, several of these chatbots have discontinued to provide election-related results. Of course, then we have very specific recommendations how to mitigate these risks. But I just wanted to already point to the fact that indeed, regarding very specific concerns, the legislative framework is already bringing some risks, but some tangible benefits. But of course, more needs to be done.
Yeah. No, I mean on the misleading information generated by chatbots, let me quote an investigation that we ran 1 year ago. It was about the results generated by Bing Chat when it was initially integrated inside Bing. We ran this test to see what were the outcomes if you ask, for example, which is the best vacuum cleaner suggested by Testasha. And it was impressive because it generated several suggestions for consumers, also with links, which were basically fake links, but you had the perception that were real. And so the average consumer would have attributed that suggestion to Testasha, for example, but there was no reference to that. And in that specific case, I mean, there was also a problem of look and feel of the presentation of the consumer, because at that time, the interface was presented with 3 different options. So you can choose something that was called more precise, normal, and creative. So it is expected that if you choose more precise, you receive an information which is accurate. Instead, more precise in that case was more referred to the language. And so you can see that you can generate misleading information, maybe not on purpose, but mostly because the interface, the way it is presented to consumers. So again, and I really agree with the analysis of the fitness check, the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive offers the instruments, the tools to fight this kind of behaviors. So a misleading layout of a site, a misleading information generated by this kind of interface, what we call dark patterns, for example, which are also in the DSA. So it's important also in the assessment that has been done by the Commission, evaluating the tools that we are at our disposal, and if these tools are, like they are in most of the cases, future-proof, so they can be fully applied also to the world of generative AI. And talking about trust and talking about industry, I would like to involve, we have two representatives of the industry side. We saw from the data that you need to do a lot of work about the consumers' trust, because the trust is one of the elements that emerge from the data. So I would like to involve Konstantin Gisler, Director General of that Europe. So from your perspective, we saw how AI, generative AI, can empower consumers. So how we can ensure that we maintain trust and safety with these innovations for consumers. How we can gain the trust of the consumers.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And also, it's been an honor being here. It's been a really exciting show so far, just before our panel. So I think that, I mean, looking a little bit also at the bright side of it, let's give a few positive examples, since we also have empowerment on the title here. I think that there are already a lot of services out there that really help consumers, also some that are currently being tested, which are, in my view, really exciting. When you look at, a lot of times I think the AI is in the background, so we might not even perceive them. I found it quite interesting. We got to see actually some of the raw data of the study before, tons of Excel files with different tabs. It was a little hard to read, but it was quite interesting. And when I looked at some of the figures, that in some countries the perception of AI being there in services is completely different from other countries. I was surprised that, for example, I think it was Sweden, but please correct me if you know it by heart, which had a relatively low perception of AI being around, despite being a country that I would have said is rather quick on the adoption and is relatively ready for these technologies. So maybe that also points to that there's a streamlining happening here. People are getting more comfortable. They know that the technology is around. They no longer perceive it as something exotic or so. Of course, at the moment, AI, the label is also attached to a lot of things. It's a marketing term also. We've had algorithms for a long time. We now have really exciting use cases that everyone is talking about. But I think the interesting bit for consumers is also what's happening in the background. If you're on an online marketplace, if you're doing your banking, there's a fraud detection in the background. You will not know that there is actually a really clever algorithm making sure that you are safe there. You don't perceive that, you don't interact with it. Now, we're getting also to a point, of course, where the interaction is becoming more. What I've seen in the last couple of weeks, really interesting, one of our members actually has an AI tool now that does dubbing for videos, but like does it to a point where it actually adapts the movement of your mouth and actually gets the same intonation. So that opens, of course, there's risks with that, of course, too. But there's also so much exciting possibilities. There's Southern American cooking videos that before maybe I would have not watched. But now all of a sudden I can watch them in German or in English if I want to, and I get the same tone of the speaker. So it actually really travels well, which means both for the creators and for the audience, it opens up an exciting new world there. Of course, that also has an accessibility point. Many people who are less fortunate, who have certain disabilities, may benefit from these technologies. Being deaf, being blind, there's so much that you can do nowadays with AI. I mean, I've seen an example where now with these smart glasses, you just put a product in front of you and you ask the device, What are the ingredients? Is there anything I'm allergic against? This is currently being tested, but this is going to come. And I think in a couple of years, it might look very anachronistic to us if people in the supermarket look at the back of the product and try to decipher this small language here and some really, really hard to read stuff. And they just ask, is there anything in there that is not vegan, that I'm allergic against or so? So I think there's a lot of possibilities. Now, coming back to the original question, of course, when we look also at the figures, companies still have to do a lot around informing consumers. I think the first point, of course, is transparency. Whenever you directly interact with AI, you need to be aware of it, and that's also now in the rules. You should have at least a basic knowledge for using it about how do the results that I get to see come about. As a consumer, you have a right to that. You have a right to that under several EU legislations in the consumer space, in the DSA already. So the main criteria need to be there. If I am on, I don't know, a social network and I get to see a video and then I get to see another video, I should be able to find out somewhere at a basic level, how does this come about? And I think creating that trust is really important also for the companies themselves because they want these technologies to be adopted. And so I think there's also now with the AI Act, I've already mentioned it, there is now legislation also that forces companies, in my view, in a principles-based approach that balances safety and innovation. I think this is really important that we have a framework that allows for innovation, but whenever something is riskier, you have slightly stricter rules. And I think the Act is getting in the right direction there, and let's see a little bit how that plays out the next couple of years. But I think companies are increasingly aware of that in order to have the technologies being used, they need to create that trust, yes, of course.
No, thanks, Konstantin. And I mean, I would like to involve Sebastian Esposito, Public Affairs Manager at Google, because we heard from Konstantin the potential of AI in transforming the consumer experience in many, many sectors. So I was thinking how we can capitalize on that, so how we can really empower consumers through these new tools that they will be in the everyday life of consumers. Like it or not, is something that is going to happen. So how we can help consumers to be more empowered and how we can capitalize on that.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question, Marco, and thank you for having me here with such a great panel and a great room. It's great to see people from so many sectors here discussing and sharing ideas, because actually I think the only way we can fully harness the potential of AI is building it responsibly and building it together. Initiatives like the index that give a voice and numbers about what consumers think and experience about AI are really important to inform those multi-stakeholder discussions in a robust way with robust information. So this initiative is in itself a very good step in the right direction, I think. Well, the potential of AI from the extraordinary to the everyday, it's huge, you know. I was seeing the slides and one mentioned life expectancy, right? And there are so many incredible things happening in the field of health. For example, at Google, we have this example of AlphaFold. It's a project by Google DeepMind that, in fact, just won the Nobel Prize. That is basically a protein folding tool, right? Proteins are like the building blocks of life, so understanding how they fold, how they turn, it's essential to develop new drugs, new treatments, and so on and so forth. But doing that, I mean, old school, if you may, could take years, a lot of money. So Google DeepMind put AI at the service of trying to identify how we could speed up that, you know, protein folding understanding. And within 1 year, we managed to map more than 100 million proteins. And now that tool, AlphaFold, is available for more than 2 million scientists in 190 countries for them to research on new drugs, new treatments, new vaccines. So on that side, the extraordinary is very extraordinary, if you may. But at the same time, I really like the everyday stories of AI because, you know, AI is not new. And oh, great.
Yeah, some smoke is not. Yeah. It's not AI generated. It's real.
Absolutely, it's real. AI is not new. I mean, Google has been an AI first company for ages, so we've used it for detecting spam on Gmail, maps, people from going to one place to the other, or even my personal favorite tool, which is Google Translate. You know, myself being a person that lives in a country that I'm not the native speaker of that language, I have to admit that I find myself using it more than I should at this stage. But anyway. But these things won't happen on their own. First of all, you have to develop the right regulatory framework for that. You know, Mario Draghi has been very clear in his report in terms of how sometimes regulatory barriers may hinder innovation or growth. And technology needs to be developed, again, ethically, responsibly, but balancing the impulse for innovation while mitigating those risks, because sometimes regulatory complexity can complicate developing products, launching products, or even using products, which at the end of the day may mean that consumers cannot access some tools that could be really helpful in their everyday lives. So developing that regulatory framework is important, avoiding contradictions and duplications, and also at the same time doing an assessment of the impact of existing and new laws on consumers. But of course, it's not just a matter of regulation. We need to invest on research and development, infrastructure, and in empowering people to be able to use those technologies. You know, it's very important to understand the extent to which skilling is so crucial. You know, we had 33% of the surveyed consumers saying that they don't have the skills they think they need to use AI. And again, there's no company, consumer association, government that can do that on their own. Again, we need to work together on this. Governments should be leveraging public-private initiatives on AI skilling to, you know, create opportunities for people to learn about AI, particularly focusing on underserved communities, adding AI and computer science to the curricula. We at Google, since 2015 that we launched our Grow with Google program, we trained 15 million Europeans. Now we launch a new initiative that's called AI Opportunity. That's a 25 million euro investment, particularly focused on underserved communities and to enable them to use AI. And I also wanted to mention one specific program that we have within our partnership with your consumers, the Consumer Empowerment Project and Code Motion, that's called the Kids Leadership Academy at School with AI, that I won't describe it because Chiara will do it much better than I do, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank and congratulate your consumers and Code Motion for the great work that you're doing in that field.
No, thanks, Seb, and also for mentioning this, because it's the perfect hook for introducing Chiara. But Chiara Russo is the executive president and co-founder of Code Motion, which is partnering with us in this at School with AI Kids Leadership Academy. But before giving the floor to Chiara, I would like to show you a 3-minute video that is really nice, that was shot in a school here in not here, but hopefully it will be done also in Belgium. This program, it was in Italy, and I don't know if we have the video already available. Here it is. Con questa iniziativa vogliamo promuovere la conoscenza dell'intelligenza artificiale tra i bambini, perché siamo convinti che la cultura sia lo strumento migliore per consentire ai bambini di oggi e ai consumatori e cittadini di domani di beneficiare appieno dell'intelligenza artificiale e di prevenire possibili abusi e rischi.
Il nostro obiettivo è quello di sviluppare delle attività nel quale vogliamo esplorare le due principali tematiche dell'intelligenza artificiale, ossia il machine learning e l'intelligenza artificiale generativa. I bambini stanno allenando delle vere e proprie intelligenze artificiali, facendo un'esperienza creativa e al tempo stesso tecnologica, disegnando delle forme, dei colori e delle immagini che poi verranno utilizzate per allenare l'intelligenza artificiale, che sarà in seguito capace di riconoscere questi disegni in automatico.
Le tecnologie in generale danno, diciamo, un input in più ai ragazzi per apprendere meglio. Cerchiamo di far capire i meccanismi e anche i limiti dell'intelligenza artificiale, sempre vedendola dal punto di vista etico, perché questa è la parte importante, cioè la critica.
È una circostanza innegabile che si stia investendo molto di più nell'addestrare gli algoritmi a conoscere le persone di quanto non si sta investendo nell'educare le persone a conoscere gli algoritmi. La funzione della scuola in questo esercizio è irrinunciabile, ovvero consentire alle persone, a cominciare naturalmente dai più giovani, di cogliere le straordinarie opportunità che l'intelligenza artificiale offre loro in una stagione nella quale il rischio è che si pensi che tutto quello che è tecnologicamente possibile deve perciò solo essere anche giuridicamente legittimo e umanamente e democraticamente sostenibile.
Normalmente questo tipo di attività sono riservate ai ragazzi, alle ragazze più grandi o addirittura agli universitari. In questi laboratori abbiamo reso accessibili le stesse tecnologie, le stesse tecniche anche ai bambini e alle bambine più piccole. Non è un qualcosa fine a se stesso, ma è sempre con l'obiettivo di creare attraverso la tecnologia.
Il senso di questa iniziativa è accogliere nuove sfide. L'insegnante deve continuamente essere un facilitatore vero dell'apprendimento.
A casa i ragazzi si porteranno grandissimo entusiasmo, il ricordo di un'esperienza bellissima e la conoscenza di un nuovo strumento che li aiuterà sicuramente nelle esperienze future.
Il progetto A Scuola con l'Intelligenza Artificiale sta coinvolgendo oltre 300 bambine e bambini in Italia e Spagna dai 9 ai 13 anni. Se la vostra scuola è interessata a partecipare, contattateci. And so this was the experience in Italy, but I would like to give the floor to Chiara to tell us about the importance of projects like this that we have done together, the efforts that we made in making this project happen is not that easy also because it's not that easy to involve the different schools in Italy and Spain. So I would like to hear from you, how do you think this can impact education in general?
Okay, first of all, let me say that I'm quite excited in watching this video here with you because I think it's clear the impact and the value of this project. With Code Emotion for over 10 years, we are running and working on educational project with a clear goal of transforming young people, children, into active, aware and skilled creators who are prepared to face the next challenges in a world where technology will be even more central, as we have seen from the report. And also from the report, I have seen one of the charts where the data was, I'm not using AI because I'm not skilled enough. So here is the importance, how important is a project like that. So in this context, I'm very happy about the partnership with Euroconsumer and Google because it has been a unique opportunity of creating a really impactful project, especially talking about a crucial topic like AI at school. Our team developed a unique program with educational contents and training activities based on 4 main steps to help students learning about AI. So in the first step, we just start asking them to share their thoughts and their perspective about AI, to start with a simple discussion. In the second step, we ask them to design their first robot to help them in their daily tasks. In the third step, they start training a neural network, creating their little big data, so working also on data. And in the fourth step, in the last step, they work with generative AI. They start working with generative AI in a safely way thanks to any specific tool we implemented to help kids using AI in a safe way. So we are running this project with 300 students. Today, now I'm here with you, but my team is in Bari working in the last workshop in Italy, and now we are ready to start in Spain. So I'm very happy because this project is like an educational and open innovation laboratory for kids, and with a clear goal to provide to school students and also to their family a clear guide on how to use artificial intelligence in a conscious, safe, but also creative way. So I think that's the real value of the project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was involved in one of the workshops, the one that you saw on the video, and it was amazing to see the reaction from the kids, because everyone wanted to participate during the workshop, raising hands, asking questions, and also surprising the educator himself, because sometimes the inputs that you receive from the kids are very far away from what you expect to receive. And this is also a lesson for us as an adult, that maybe sometimes we should think outside of the box like the kids do, because it was really impressive to receive this kind of feedback. And the most heartwarming things was at the end when all the kids said, are you going to come back? When are we going to do this again? And I mean, this was the better way to testify how the activity was appreciated in the school. So I thank GoTheMotion for making this possible. And as I said in the end of the video, we want to enlarge this program next year. And so we hope to have more schools on board in more countries, because really, I feel that this is one important point for the future. So it's not something that you're doing now for having a result tomorrow. It's something that you're doing now for having a result in 5 years, 10 years. So this is the most important things. And talking about AI literacy, which is one of the few provisions of the AI Act that will enter into force in February, together with the prohibited uses of AI, I would like to come back to Christina, because I would like to hear from you, how do you see it is critical, is important for individuals to have a strong understanding of AI? Because as I said in the video, I really believe that culture is the tool to prevent also possible abuses or misuses of artificial intelligence.
Absolutely, I totally agree to that. I would, at the same time, go a bit broader. I think AI literacy is very important, and I think it's not today part of media literacy. And if you did not have enough figures for this afternoon, I have also a figure about the ability of consumers to be able to identify true from false when it comes to news, and I think this is quite a crucial skill. So actually, according to the OECD Trust Quest survey, only 6% chance consumers have to identify false from true. So it's not much more than a toss of a coin that they will identify if news is false. And actually, this is even higher when it comes to those who are consuming news mostly through social media. Also, other surveys show very much that there is a big skills issue in the ability to recognize AI-generated disinformation. So I think indeed there is a lot to do in this regard, and initiatives like this are very much needed. Also at the European Commission, we are looking into media literacy initiatives, also of course now AI literacy initiatives. We have also the European Digital Media Observatory, who have both classroom-based exercises but also outside the classroom, because one aspect that I think is important to stress that it's not just children and young people who have problems. I think also the figures of your survey show that this goes a little bit across all the population, while there are nuances. So I think there is a lot to do. And of course, we will make also our contribution. But of course, the good thing is that if children already start to learn it, then we will have adults who can much better navigate in the new environment.
Yeah, and coming back to Sebastian, I mean, we heard from Christina also the risk associated with AI. So what can do to mitigate those risks? from the industry perspective, of course.
Absolutely, no, and I totally agree with you and with Christina about the importance of the cultural aspect. In fact, Christina even mentioned pre-bunking and those techniques. Our Jigsaw team has been working in partnership with experts in the US, in Europe, on pre-bunking techniques that are basically techniques that empower users, empower consumers to detect situations that may lead to disinformation exchange, let's put it that way, but before that explicit act of disinformation happens. So empowering consumers with that knowledge, those tools to detect potential harms is key. But let me share some very specific steps that we take as Google, but I think are exemplar of what things could be done to try to tackle these things, because as every new technology, AI brings new solutions, but of course, new problems too. And at Google, when we develop generative AI tools and products, we try to make sure that we ensure safety all across the life cycle of the project. So we have some pre-launch safety measures and safeguards. For example, first of all, we embed safety on everything based on our AI principles, but at the same time, we conduct not only internal testing, but trusted testing before launching products. Then after launching the products, we keep testing, and at the same time, we take consumer feedback very seriously to try to understand the use, abuse, and potential problems that may come with the use of those tools, and that's why we also take gradual steps to launch our products. We are very careful in terms of how we launch it, because we want to make sure that our products are safe as they are empowering. But at the same time, there are ecosystem safeguards that you can take, because we share knowledge, information, we try to educate users, and at the same time work with developers for them to be able to build responsibly. We were mentioning two synthetic media. So for example, we developed a tool called SynthID, that basically embeds an invisible watermark into any content that might be created with our AI generative tools, be that image, text, video, sound, and through that, content that was created artificially can be detected, you know, and even further down the line, inform people about something having been created artificially, which is not necessarily bad, but the use or misuse actually of that kind of content could be problematic. At the same time, we give people tools to dig deeper in the information that they get from our generative AI tools. So for example, we have a feature called Double Check that enables you to go straight to the search sources where that information is coming from, you know, for people to be able to see if that's authoritative information that they're seeing. But also we have features like About This Image that will tell you when this image came to be, how it was created, about this information. But at the same time, I think it's important, of course, to think about the new challenges that come with AI, but also the potential that AI has to tackle some of old and new challenges. AI has been helping us to tackle harms in a much faster and scalable way than ever before. In fact, what we're aiming to do now is to develop models in days' time that could be centered on specific types of harm. This is particularly effective, for example, for disinformation narratives or scam narratives. So let's say we get a new scam narrative, we may be able to put together a model that detects specifically that type of scam for us to be able to detect it earlier and directed it to our enforcement team. But all in all, as I was saying, every new technology comes with new challenges as well as new solutions. It's very important to stay attentive to tackle the new harms that come with AI, but at the same time, harness that potential of AI to solve those problems too.
No, so in the end, it's about trust. It's about building trust in the tools. And we saw from the data that lack of trust is something that affects also the public authorities, according to the data. So, and I think enforcement could be a way to gain this trust. So I would like to ask Hussein, what opportunities does AI provide for enforcement agents to better protect consumers?
Yes, thank you. So indeed, from our side, we don't only look at AI in the sense of how do consumers use it, but also how can we and enforcement authorities use AI to better protect our consumers. And there, I must say, in the digital sphere, there is really not an equality of arms when it comes to enforcement. You know, there is so much content and so much activity online that only human capabilities of enforcement agencies is just not sufficient. To give an example, there are marketplaces in our economy that feature more than 10 million products at any given time, sold by more than 150,000 traders. So as you can understand, only human capabilities of enforcement agencies is not enough. And that's the reason why from our side, from the Commission side, we try to assist member states and their enforcement agencies with tools, digital tools that also use AI for certain aspects. And to give just two very short examples, we have what we call ELAP, EU ELAP. That's a tool we provide to consumer protection authorities in 25 countries, used by more than 250 enforcement agents. And that tool, for example, can scrape the internet to look for product offers where the recent rules in terms of price indication and price reductions are not respected. As you know, we have these new rules saying that whenever you have a price reduction, the trader has to indicate what was the prior price, etc. So we have AI capabilities that can scrape for such content and analyze them. Another example is in the area of product safety. So as you know, authorities, national authorities, product safety authorities, when they find unsafe products, they have to notify that to the EU safety gate. And via the EU safety gate, all other authorities of the member states are notified, and they can use that data to search for the same product on their territory. But of course, when it concerns online offers, it's very difficult to do that based on human capabilities only. So we have a web crawler called e-surveillance, which scrapes the internet constantly based on the notified dangerous products in the EU safety gate. And whenever it finds these products on the internet, it notifies the authorities and says, look, you can find these products there. Every week, if I'm not wrong, the EU web crawler searches or detects 200,000 products, of which 1,000 are then identified as being unsafe, notified, knowing to be unsafe. So those are two examples.
No, it's super interesting, and we touched the enforcement part, and I mentioned before that the AI Act is going to enter into force in few months, and we are going into the long phase of implementation of the AI Act. So just 1 minute and a half, $1 million question for Konstantin. What challenges do you foresee in this implementation?
Yeah, thanks. I accept checks and transfers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think given that the AI Act has only been in the law books now for a couple of months, it's still a fresh exercise. It's also, I think we've regulated an area that we didn't regulate before. I think so for both sides, enforcers and for the companies and for the other stakeholders that are part of the discussion, this is a bit of a new territory. So I think the unique thing is that we have the first comprehensive law worldwide in a major economic area. And for the companies now, of course, you need to get their head around. They need to first identify, where am I even in this whole supply chain? Am I a developer? Am I a deployer? Am I even a user? So sometimes you find yourself at different spots, and that depends then on that, whether you have certain responsibilities or not. I think a major challenge now is, first of all, the timeline that has been set by the legislators is a rather strict one. Yeah, it's quite fast. I think there was a lot of political will here to create these rules, and that's a bit reflected, unfortunately, also in the timelines. So the national authorities need to be set up. This is something that we've seen in the Digital Services Act, that these things actually can take a while, especially if it's a completely new authority with new powers. So I think companies may not have an interlocutor for some time. And then secondly, I think a lot of the details in the AI Act are not yet there. We're still waiting for a lot of, pardon the Brussels jargon, delegated acts, guidelines that are going to tell us a little bit more what is actually precisely prohibited? What do you have to do here? What do you have to publish? What are the templates for the transparency reports and so on? So these things are still to come. So I think companies are also waiting for that. There's a little bit of uncertainty now in the market because you need to move together with the authorities at the same time. And that's why in the beginning it's a difficult exercise for them, I think.
Brilliant. You won the challenge. So I own you 1 million, but I will maybe 1 million of Ferrero Rocher because they are still upstairs. No, and I would like to close the panel with just one last word from Chiara, because we heard about the project, we saw about the project. I would like to have a word on you about how do you think AI can enhance the work of person like you are, or as educator, as trainers. So what is the impact on your work?
AI has an incredible impact, obviously, also on education, but I think it's very important to be focused on the central role of people using AI in the right way. For example, what we learned during this program is that, for example, by learning how to train artificial intelligence in classroom, even young students understand that artificial intelligence is not like a black box with superpowers, because some kids describe artificial intelligence in this way in the beginning. But they learn that it's a powerful tool that could help them in doing things and making decisions. So I think it's the crucial point. Also talking about generative AI, it's very important to use it to teach to kids in this case, but not only talking about kids, how to use generative AI to empower their creativity, to help them in their projects, but don't think about generative AI as a tool that could replace their human creativity, for example.
Thank you. We are absolutely on time, so I would like to ask you to join me in tribute and applause to our speakers. And enjoy the rest of the EC Forum. I think there is a little break now. Yeah, it is. Coffee break.